Hi everyone, my name is Maciej Nowak and welcome to Awesome to Know podcast where we discuss all things WordPress. My today's guest is Nick Stein, a marketing consultant working with tech startups. And as you may know, technology companies are very close to my heart. In this conversation, we are discussing how to approach a website rebuild and what are the common pitfalls when doing that. We also discuss what to do to detach your marketing from Google as the main source of your leads and how not to think about your business. Please enjoy my conversation with Nick Stein.
Hey everyone, it's good to have you here. We're glad you decided to tune in for this episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.
Nick, so you are a marketing consultant. You work a lot with startups. And, the natural thing for me to ask is, are startups a different breed or how do they approach web projects? So is there anything particular about their strategy when building a website for their business, or is it like just another kind of a business?
It's actually pretty much. It starts off as different. When I walk in there, it's different from each project. Though I try and structure it the same way because it makes it easier for me in general. I see most startups make the same mistake of going design first, which is for me is the mistake, because then you have to write the text in the areas that have been designed for it. And so you can't really, you end up cutting your creativity, with your written content. And so, yes, that can affect SEO, that can affect a whole bunch of other things, and it can affect the way that people read or interact with the website. So, I think there's a lot of, we want to be Apple. You can't be Apple. That's my personal thing. It's where you want to get to, but as a startup, you're never going to be there to begin with. You need to really make people understand what your product is very, very quickly. If that's visually, if that's with written content, either way works. But you can't just say, okay, we're going to have bright colors and a obscure headline.
Funnily enough, there was a moment in time when I got this request, because we also run an agency, and this was the request like every second time. It was like a season, and now I don't know for why, but it's changed, and I no longer hear those requests like, we want to be like Apple. We don't want to be like Apple, but we want to have the website that resembles the Apple website. And actually, if you strip, what's there, you nearly cannot recreate the content because this is so unique and so much going on behind the scenes that it looks simple, but you just don't have the content to create anything similar like that.
Yeah, and I think it's quite well known that simple actually is extremely difficult to pull off.
Exactly. Yes.
That's what I don't think startups really fully grasp.
So if not going design first, what would be the best approach to work on a website if you're a startup, for example?
It depends what stage of the startup you are. If you have the luxury of having some customers, interview them, find out what they're talking about. And the best skill you can do in marketing in general and in life in general is listen before you ask, before you talk. So you let them talk about the industry, how they talk about it. You don't try and guide them into how you want it to be. So let them use their words. And that's the same thing I take into the whole content creation, SEO creation, because I put that into a two-phase thing. First, when you're an initial startup, you look at the company that you've got to try and get leads. So you talk to Google. Once you get a little bit further on, you talk to the customer because you found your product market fit. And you need to listen to them and make them understand that you're an expert in your field by relaying or sort of mirroring what they've said to you on your website. And that's also plays into the imagery. And so interviews, customer interviews, industry interviews, expert interviews in general is to really get to understand what they're looking for. And it gets you much further, much quicker, with,
All right.
messaging and everything.
We started discussing a little bit of of what startup can start with, and I didn't ask you, I already introduced you a little bit, but can you explain for our listeners a little bit about yourself? Where do you come from? I make this mistake all the time, just going straight, to what's the expertise, and I always forget the parts, asking, what's your background? Where are you coming from?
Yeah. I don't think the podcast is long enough for my background, unfortunately. I'm old enough, and I'm also bizarre enough in the fact that I am American, but grew up in the UK. So I call soccer football. That's my differentiator from other Americans, I suppose. And I've lived in Austria now for about 12 years. I started basically in project management and then moved into marketing, and worked on some really great things. I worked for Ogilvy, advertising in London, and worked on the Manchester United sponsorship. And then I moved over here, and basically through working in B2B space, because I didn't really find a opening in the sports marketing world. I saw that there was a niche that I actually could offer with the knowledge and expertise of the UK and the US market, that I could help companies and startups actually that wanted to expand to those markets. And so that's where I started working with startups. I also got the startup bug myself and created something myself, and had a startup called One Player Down, which was about trying to connect people through playing sports. Because I live in a smaller city in Vienna, everybody knows each other from a very young age, and so it was difficult to get into the sports groups, and I just tried to open it up. It was good fun, and so I got to understand both sides of the marketing and also the business side of it, and it made me better at my job, for sure.
Thanks for this. I will
No
have
problem.
to make a mental note to always ask this. Thank you very much. So, is there anything particular, that startups struggle with, content wise or marketing wise, that, looking at the company and their website, it's like you can see patterns most of the time. You type the URL, you see the homepage, and then bang, like when I'm, for example, talking with my friends who run small companies, I see the problems, for example, we had when we were starting, and, it needs the outside perspective, because, if you are inside, you don't see much. You have to have this sometimes fresh look or helicopter view. So, is there anything that is like a pattern for you happening over and over?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. I mean, stuff like I've seen, and it's happened less and less, but it's like trying to reinvent what a call to action button looks like. If you're in general, that's something you can do again if you're an Apple, but you can't do it when you're a niche B2B solution, or even just a small startup in the B2C space, because then you have people hunting for things. You got to make things very easy and understandable, and the biggest thing I think is to, when you're writing content, is not have too many jargon words. And that I think is when I first moved over here, there was a very big thing, a difference in the way that an Austrian or German company would market to themselves in comparison to the US and the UK. And it was, we're technical founders, we're going to write in technical speak because we want to show that we're experts. Though that's great, and it's an extremely useful thing in the European market, it's very difficult in the US and UK market, because actually the people who are doing it are either doing the research are probably a little junior, so they're not so technical and don't have this knowledge. Or when it goes to the buyer is more in a business focus and not in a technical focus. So you have to have a technical specifications thing, but it shouldn't be the thing that runs your content. And there seems to be a happy medium now, between the two, where you have maybe an expandable box where then comes your technical details. So you're covering all bases. But that would be, one of the main things I see on most website stuff. That's probably it.
Yes, this is great stuff because it's like, focusing on shiny things, and you think that, spending your attention on this shiny new CTA button will make something click or move the needle for you, whereas this is the whole ton of other things.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I would put into this is sometimes a website relaunch is not needed straight away. You need to have a plan to optimize your current website, so you buy your team that breathing space to do the relaunch correctly. Because usually relaunches, or some relaunches I've been involved in, are the shiny new thing, and it's not what is wrong with what we're doing right now. Why are we not converting right now? And that doesn't get solved in just a new skin on the same problem. And I think whenever I've gone into a website relaunch project, I said, why are we doing this? Is it because of leads? Is it because there's not a conversion? Or is it because we're changing our business? And if it's conversion, I said, let's look at the website as it is. Is it technically problematic, or the technical SEO problems that we can at least solve while we want to do the plan the relaunch, or is it a huge issue that we need to get solved? We worked on a project that it was basically it was a technical issue, and it's bought. We worked together to buy the team time to rethink the whole project, the whole website, the whole way people would go through the lead generation flow, and that can only be done if you have a stable environment to begin with, and that if it's a stability issue, that needs to be fixed quick.
But how to provide a stable environment if you're a small startup? Maybe not small, but it's very vague where small stops and and big kicks in. But startups are notorious for being places like work environments where everything is moving, and chaos is one thing, but the pressure is the other. You have your runway, you have to sprint to the to launch the product because you have money from the investors.
This is very true. But then I would say the biggest tip for any marketer listening to this, going into a startup, is the first question you ask: do you have a backup? Do you have a backup of the website? Because I've been in that situation more times than I would like to admit, that something happens with the website, it goes down, you don't have even Cloudflare behind it, so we can at least put a version of the website up from ages ago, and you don't have a backup of the website. And so before any project starts, make sure you have some sort of security if anything happens, that at least you can just press, okay, yesterday's website's now back up online.
Yeah, and especially if you're doing updates, for your open source website. Okay, you don't have backup, but then the website went down because you did, the updates the last time a year ago, and everything changed so dramatically that it's no longer compatible with each other. The moving parts. So, yeah, and this is like a sanity check for everyone. Do you have backup? And it sounds crazy if you think about this, but again, if you are inside, it's like maybe procrastination. I will take care of it next day, next week, next month, because this doesn't scream, for help that you don't have a backup. Maybe your IT colleague who left the company a year ago was supposed to do this, but never managed to do this. So it's always like You never know, right?
No, I mean, I've been in these situations, and unfortunately, you can be, if you are, if it's badly timed when the website goes down, which, let's be honest, it's always badly timed when the website goes down. But if, it's like a holiday time, a national holiday, you could, or yeah, a bank holiday or whatever, you can lose the website for 3 days, or 4 days without, yeah, because otherwise it's too costly to put it back up and so on and so forth. And this is a disaster. And especially if your website's like, I don't know, one of your biggest sales machines. It's not always the case. Sometimes it's more of a, okay, we tell the story about the company, but then you can also be in a situation where you're in negotiations with investors. And if your website starts going down during this time, then that can potentially knock some money off what they invest, because okay, you're a technical company, you can't handle the small technicality of keeping a website online. This isn't good.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I cannot imagine worse timing than when negotiating the investment round, for example. So I think this doesn't get any worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And
I agree.
and it's 2022, and I find this funny that we are discussing, having backups on a website for a startup. That's, but this is recent stuff as well. Uber was hacked a couple of days ago, and then I saw on Twitter, I don't know if it is real or not, but then someone screenshotted, LinkedIn job board from Uber, and there were like 8 or 12 security positions from, all sorts of like things, and the hack was someone got manipulated, and that person had high privileges, and it's crazy. It's just crazy, and everyone is has to have this security, because backups are security. Like it's bare minimum, and the bigger you get, the more sophisticated you should be.
Of course, and as I said, I mean, if your whole lead funnel just relies on the website, and then you just lose it. Even if you lose it for a couple of days, it's not just that you've lost the leads for a couple of days. You've lost anybody who's come and wants to do a little due diligence or anything like that. And so you might actually lose, I don't know, a real big chunk of leads because they were in the research phase. And if you're not there, then you've lost a lot. And it's hard to trace back, what you've lost. So these are the things that, yeah, be aware it's core business. It isn't, okay, it's a nice window that just marketing deals with. No, this is core business. This is a COO, problem. This is the internal, dev team should at least be, available to it just in case. And they're working with you and Awesome are handling it. Basically, there should still be a mirror that's, inside the company that can say, if needs must, I can still flip a version of the website online, because this is a big deal, and it causes untold stress inside a company.
Yes, I bet. If you are a product company, your website is your window to the world, right?
Yeah, and if you're highly technical founders and you're showing we're amazing, we can solve really really complex things, and you can't solve the not so complex thing of keeping a website online, then you have it can hurt you. But
Yeah.
the world has a short memory, so sometimes it can just sort of fly past. So nobody will be talking about
that's all.
Uber in a while, in a short time.
Right. And so we covered a little bit of like basics, not basics, but the bare minimum you should be doing. But how I would like to go back a couple of steps. So we mentioned that if you are going to change your website, because for example, you have one, but you want to change for some reasons, it's not always a good thing to start like design first and then see what happens, but rather to decide where is the problem. So I wonder how, because I'm asking about this because people sometimes have hard time identifying the cause and for website not working. And what would be the best approach to identify what may be the source of problems? Because you can flood the website with traffic, but then that traffic wouldn't convert, and you can have small traffic about fine conversions, but cannot drive more traffic. So both can be problems. And how do you identify out of spectrum of problems, what's the real one?
Yeah. This is again, unfortunately, it depends on which phase you are in as a startup, but I'll talk about a startup or a company with product market fit, because there's a very different phase otherwise. I would solve that, in, a pre-product market fit with a lot of landing pages and SEO and testing. Or at least I try to. When you have product market fit, but your website's not converting the way you feel it should do, I think it comes down to understanding the buyer journey. And maybe your website never was supposed to be a converting website. It was an educational website. And you'll only understand that if you figure out the buyer journey and where your website fits into it. Obviously the goal for any marketing department or a company in general is to get past the begging for leads by download our white paper or download this and we'll take your email, and then you're into the notorious MQL funnel, where you're potentially spammed. So I think it's really understanding that buyer journey, and seeing where the website sits in that, and how much you can expand what the website does, from there, because you can obviously then, go into other styles of marketing, like account-based marketing, which then comes back to some landing pages and stuff like that. But in general, it is really understanding where it sits in your funnel. Because that's going to dictate your content, the expectations of the website. Because if you're a niche B2B website, you have to really look at what is our total market. Because if we're saying, oh, we need 10,000 people coming per day on our website, and the total market of what we have, there's 400 companies. We can't be looking at 10,000 a day. We've got to be looking at really high quality people, and maybe 15, 20, 30 a day wins. And that's, you've got to understand the backgrounds of your market, to understand these things. That's how I look at it.
All right. So
No quick
the
fix
question.
there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe in quick fixes, and this is again like chasing shiny objects. But you answered the question of what. Now the question of how, because I read in one book, the CEO of Intel, and the group famously said, like, I know what to do. I don't know how to do this. So, if we know what to do, like, I just understand the buyer journey, how this should be implemented. So, like, because if you are working with your customers, you have this product market fit, you have your customers, and you ask the question, then the lone fact that you are, for example, asking a question to your customer changes the way they are thinking about this, because of all sorts of things, like trying to either show off or biasing towards what should be the process instead of what was the process, lack of in memories. And, this is all human nature. So you cannot ask direct questions, because this will change the results. So how can we identify the buyer journey?
Yeah, you're totally right. The questions dictate the answer, and that's a very difficult thing with how there's a tough psychological way of writing questions, and you have to really make sure you just ask something that's so open that they go their way, and obviously, if this customer this company has been with you for 2-3 years, your contact point might have changed. They might not know how this happened. They just know their job and that's it. So that you might have lost information in that too. And they also will, even if they were the person, they're going to have a bias of how they looked at it in the first place. It is down to testing again. So, I mean, you have to find, by doing more customer interviews or more questionnaires or more something, if there is a common thread through this, that then takes you through this. And you start, okay, you work your thesis, and experiments off of that. And you say, okay, there's this common thread that we're going to work off because, I don't know, 70% of our customers are saying that they went through this way, and this is what was important to them in the buying process. From our website, then okay, then we can push through. If there's unfortunate cases where that doesn't exist at all, and you then have to say, okay, fine, I have to take the information I've gotten from the interviews, maybe talk to some experts in the field, and let them go through the journey as well on your website, and then I consistently feel that you have to buy your own product every once in a while.
Okay.
Because you'll then see, okay, that made sense in in a small scale or in its box, but in the whole flow of researching, going through and then buying your product, it really feels like I'm not going on a line. I'm going, oh, whoops, then there. I'm still getting to the same place, but it's just not a good flow. So I think with those three sort of areas of the customer interviews, the industry expert interviews, and your own user interviews, I think you get there, and you find out how.
Right.
Again, no quick thing.
Again, a lot of work. Sounds like a lot of work.
It is, but I mean, to become the best, there's all these documentaries recently about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, and they were machines, or
exactly.
You just have to be focused and just keep on doing stuff. I have young kids, and they love playing sports, but they hate practicing. I said, well, do you want to be better? It's practice. It's the effort that gets you to the next level. You can enjoy kicking the ball, but if you want to kick it straight, you got to practice.
Yeah, that's not fun part of the getting of becoming a master or even improving, because this takes deliberate practice, and the deliberate practice is not fun. You want to like run with the ball and kick it, and it's very true what you are saying. So no, this is that darker part of the of having fun in sports.
Yeah, you're right. To be good, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in the background.
Yeah, the word relentless, I think, is suitable here.
I probably should not have said blood, sweat, and tears when I've already mentioned my kids in the statement. So there's no blood, sweat, and
Yeah, we will cut it. No worries. All right. So we covered a little bit of like approach or strategy to rebuilding, redesigning your existing website, but for example, if you have no website, you have to start with something. And let's assume everything went well and you are the owner, you spent a ton of money, for example, on your website, and then you just hope and launch and pray that everyone will want to visit this. Like people will be flocking to your website just because you have launched it. And, most of the time this is not the case. So now I would like to tackle the problem of where how to attract visitors? Where should we get the visitors? How to do this?
Yeah, this is always a difficult one. I mean, pre-COVID, if you're launching in a small thing that's very regional, you go to events, you go to things, you talk to people, and so on and so forth. You can get on forum boards. I know that sounds old, but they exist depending if you're on a niche. If you're on a very niche product, sometimes that's the best place for you still. Get into groups on Facebook. I hesitate to recommend groups on LinkedIn because they're still not working as well as they should do. But there's lots of different areas where there's audiences already. Though it's a played out thing at the moment that you do a launch or something on Product Hunt, if you're trying to find an audience, it is a good. There's lots of ways to get to it, and your goal is to really, if it's is try and find where the people that your theory is that will be using your product are, and get them to give you feedback really quickly, because again, I mean, this is basically the common thing that I'm saying the whole time is feedback. Feedback's key at the beginning. You can't lead an industry from just having a great idea, no matter who you are, Elon Musk or anything. There's a feedback rounds. He talked to experts. He got all sorts of insights before doing things. I'm not saying that you should overanalyze before you launch, because launching and getting feedback is part of the learning experience. So get out there, and be your best salesperson. Love your product and talk about it as much as you can. But, again, listen. It's very difficult to have, the term I hate is it's your baby, thing, with a project. But when you put somebody in that situation, you use that phrase, the first thing, you go back to the feeling of your parent when somebody says you're something bad about your kid, you defend. You don't listen. And that's why I think it's your baby is actually one of the worst terms you can use. You can just say, okay, open yourself up to feedback. However you want to name this and not call it your baby, that you can actually say, I'm here to listen and find out how to make this, develop this into this great thing. That's probably the best way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is popular concept to call a business a baby, company a baby, to think about this like about
because
a child.
It grows. You develop it, it grows. You're supposed to educate it and give it the opportunities. But I think there's Papa Bear, Mama Bear, whatever you want to call that, inside you is to protect first. And I think that's the, if you go in with that mentality of your startup, your idea, causes issues. And that's why I'm loving the whole build in public movement that's started happening a couple of years ago, because it's not my baby. I'm here to give something and see what happens, and be happy to get the feedback and happy to get the engagement.
I just love the fact that you are calling it out, that you cannot think about this way, because this is natural for when it grows. It's natural for people to have it this mindset, but it's counterproductive. And what about the other source of traffic, ads? So you can pay for the traffic. You can spend a ton of work trying to find like obscure places to leave your traces and tips where to find you. But then there is the easy way of spending a ton of money on the website. So how to balance it?
I would say, because obviously if your goal is to raise money, get investment, you need to get traction as quick as possible. The reason why I wouldn't go ads first, is because maybe you don't understand the market enough. And so you end up spending money on ads that are with a keyword that's maybe not optimized for what you want. And so you're looking at volume versus the actual worth of the keyword. And to me, that equals a situation where you end up spending a lot of money, and you can actually then possibly pivot your product or your idea too early because you're actually getting the incorrect feedback from the market. You're getting a feedback that, hey, there's lots of traction, but they want this, and okay, I'll build that. And when sometimes that is valid because you find there's not a big enough market for your product. But I think if you do that too early, you don't give yourself a chance to find out if there is actually a paid for need. The other thing I tend to like to do is try and get people to pay for the product quickly. So even in the early phases, the MVP phase is get somebody to say, okay, I would commit, I'm going to commit. Here's I don't know, €1 a month for this product, just to say, okay, fine, I've got skin in the game, I believe in you enough, and that's also for me a product validation or an idea validation. Once you've got a little bit of feedback from this smaller group, which I think it's very useful to work in a small group first, that you've got more organically and you're more engaged with these people individually. Then you go out and test, hey, is there a bigger market for it? I've learned more about the industry. I've got more keywords that I can use, and then you test out the paid stuff. But if you test out the paid stuff too early, I think it can distract you. It's
True.
not always the case,
True.
but that's my feeling.
Unbelievable how big a barrier is even spending €1, because it's not about the money, but rather the process of leaving the card details or your personal data, spending time on filling out the form, which I hate, for
Exactly.
example. And then there's that money aspect that, okay, you are in fact leaving some money, you're parting with a tiny part of your of your wealth with the product, and it is a huge barrier just even to sign up and spend any kind of money. And this is great like information for you. If someone is not going to do this, then
for sure. And the other thing is, I think if you're just giving everything out for free at the beginning, you probably don't think of the whole payment flow, how they're going to do this, and how and all these types of things, until you're at the stage where you have to, and or it's more traditional to do it, and then maybe you're a little late in getting the understanding, and things mess up when you're asking for 50 a month, and that's when people say, okay, if I'm going to spend 50 a month on your product, I expect everything to work. So you haven't learned that skill in your startup or your company, and so you have that problem. Also, this gives you the chance to bootstrap if you need to. So if you can build a little bit more money behind all of this, you can potentially bootstrap your startup. And I think at the very beginning stages, that gives you a lot more flexibility.
True. And when you do this too late, you have a huge amount of time lost that could be spent learning how to tackle this problem. Because then when you finally start to do this, it's like, okay, it's like the first day, you have some more knowledge, but then it would be like starting this a year ago, for example, and then you don't have the luxury of figuring it out. It has to work from day one.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if you're first starting out and it's your very first startup, and obviously maybe age plays into this. If you're younger, then it might be a harder ask, or people might not trust you as much. Unfortunately, no matter how good you are at what you do, there's these barriers for people. Then maybe you have to do it a little later, or figure out some different type of system to do it. There's many ways to do it. Saying for the first year you pay this, but if you recommend X or give me this amount of feedback, you can get the money back. just to say, okay, fine, you're investing in this getting better. So you become like an early investor almost instead of just a user.
All right. And so we discussed a little bit of, we diverted a little bit to how to build those processes, for the product companies that are, for example, subscription based. I would like to go back again to those sources of visitors, because this is like, this is where the money comes from the visitors turning into the client. So if you are, investing in SEO, for example, then you are relying on being, findable. And those organic sources are driven by, Google. And then you rely heavily on Google. Or if you are spending money on Facebook and you build a community on Facebook, then if something bad happens, you can get cancelled. I mean, for businesses, this is not always the case, but there were cases where the whole, companies were cancelled because, for example, something in the API changed of Facebook, but this is a different case. So my question is there a way to be less reliant on those giants? Oh, I started to rhyme even, so.
Yeah, this is one of my, I'm glad, in general, it seems like marketing has gone back to before, I don't know, Facebook was the only way to do it. Google was the only way to do it. They've gone back to email marketing being, a key component. And I am a heavy, proponent of email marketing, segmented newsletters, making the community build up that way, and then from there, then you build up other parts of a community. So, for instance, I was consulting for a company, and I walked in, and day one, their newsletter had been crushed by GDPR and not really looked after, because they were working so well on Google and making lots of money. And I said, what is your stretch goal for the marketing for the next 2-3 years? And I said, I want to be able to shut off all Google and Facebook and all these ads that we're paying for and still be a profitable company. And I think people were falling off their chair with that statement. I said, it's not possible. No, it's healthy. And I said, it's a stretch goal. I'm not saying we're going to achieve it, but we should be able to have two very, very comfortable, streams of income through different ways. So if one messes up with an algorithm change or something else, we're still okay. And don't get me wrong. I mean, if you start doing a heavy email marketing, you're still likely in Google's world because a lot of people have Gmail accounts. So you have to start figuring those things out. So with that, I basically said, we're going to do some of the ugliest marketing that I don't like. We're going to put pop-ups on the website, exit pop-ups. Hey, look, you're leaving, but why don't you keep in contact with us? And so we built like the newsletter list from, to be honest, it was one person on the newsletter list to like I don't know, 30, 40, 50,000 really quickly. Because we just said, okay, we have the traffic, we have the interest, we are a leader in the market, but we just haven't been doing that. And then from there, the goal, the push was to segment them. So give them good information, put it out there, and then start asking them questions. Hey, in a questionnaire in the newsletter, what's your interest? Okay, this person is in liking, I don't know, fast moving consumer stuff. This one's a designer. So we started segmenting them out and built out of that. And then in another company, I completely changed their newsletter because they were just talking about their product and nothing else. And so I watched this and said, I'm going to sit back. They had a huge subscriber base. And I thought, I'll watch and see what happens. And then every week, huge amounts of unsubscribes. And I said, guys, we're not talking to them the way they want to be talked to. And then we basically we redid the whole newsletter. People were signing up because they thought, okay, we're a great marketing company, and they thought we'd have great knowledge. We just kept on throwing blogs at them, old blogs, new blogs, but still blogs. And I said, hey, why don't we curate some stuff from the internet, get some great articles about marketing, give some tips, and whatever, and then we just do like 3 or 4 tips before, and good articles before we get to just one thing about us, one thing. And so it was much more a industry focused, thing. Engagement rate went up, click-through rate went up, everything was went really well because of it. And we actually were getting many more people subscribing, and we were seeing that people were sharing the newsletter and talking about it. So it was a great then engagement to grab a whole new audience in. And then it was then time to segment them out. So, and that just, the segmentation, that was a scary thing for the marketing team. Cause, oh my God, I'm going to end up having to write 8 newsletters a week. I'm never going to have time for anything else. I said, no, you just say, okay, fine. We know that we have these segments and we're putting 5 articles into the newsletter per month or a week or whatever it was. I can't remember the cadence. And you say, make sure there's one for everybody, and then just switch up. Like, say if there's one about designing and it's for the designers, but it's in the 5th place on the one for the fast moving consumer group, you just flip it up to the top one and make that the most important article. And I said, oh, well, that can work. And again, the engagement got even better. And don't be afraid to delete or move the non-engaged people somewhere else. And don't be afraid to send the same newsletter out twice, so that once you didn't engage, send it out again with a different title. Make sure that they understand it, and you build that community. And you can see, you send one newsletter out and the traffic to your website spikes unbelievably, because of these things. So it's really important to not think of a newsletter as a necessary evil. Think of it as an amazing tool in the nurture phase of marketing.
I love it. I really love it, because this is also something that I see more often right now. And, this is delivering a value, other than, writing X time about the same thing. I have many questions to what you said. So when you started saying that, let's put the exit pop-ups, I thought, is this even working these days? So it's like, and from 0, okay, 1, from 1 subscriber, you ended up, in thousands, right? Yeah. So what was the traffic on the website? It had to be thousands, right?
It was like a couple of thousand a day. But
all right, that's a lot.
Yeah, and so on top of that, you have there were campaigns we were doing on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, to push to the newsletter. We were heavily working on Twitter. Hey, our newsletter's coming out today. It's got giving previews and so on and so forth to make people understand that there's value there. And so showing it to a bigger audience, and obviously doing the light Twitter hacks of adding, writing at this person to an industry expert or an influencer or whatever. And those types of things help out. So there's those little things that add a little, gasoline to the fire on these things. But in general, ugly marketing sometimes works. I mean, pop-ups are ugly. We all hate them. But sometimes when you have a tough situation, you have to play some ugly games to make sure that it works. And then once you got the audience, if you have the audience, you have a lot. And that's the thing. It's an attention level, because they're much more likely to buy from you than anybody else. Email is email is consistently the highest. I think it's highest return on investment channel that you have, because they've already said yes. It's a permission. They've given you permission to be in their inbox. They want to hear from you. They don't want you to just keep on shouting, "I'm the best." They want to hear your opinion. They want to hear what you hear, because again, if you curate articles from around the web, you're doing your own research for other articles you're going to write. So you're doing it anyways. So it's just like, hey, those 3 articles you picked up this week just to be able to write the next blog, maybe that's interesting anyways to the group. So we can then turn the blog into our take on those 3 articles. So then you can have those 3 articles in the newsletter, and you have the opinion side of it coming from you as experts. And it works. It's not rocket science. It's just time consuming.
Yes, that was actually one of my questions. So, was there a dedicated person to take care of this whole newsletter initiative? Because it sounds like a lot of work, even though, someone has to pick those articles, curate it, compose and a newsletter. So it sounds like a lot.
I'll have one moment where I praise myself. I'm in an office group, because I tend to run marketing teams or whatever. I work well with the other like customer service or customer success, the sales team, the dev team. And so, for instance, on one place, there was an all hands, and I just said, okay, fine. The newsletter is a tool, but all of us are involved in it. So whenever you find an article, whenever you find anything, then please send it to us. We can't do everything, and we can't have the take that the dev team can have. So if there's an opening, I'm going to ask, I need a new author this week for something that's going to ring true for the dev team. And I've been very lucky to have buy-ins from C-levels to push this, because I'm taking up time from different projects. But if you can show the results beforehand, then people will buy into it afterwards. Sometimes you get the buy-in earlier, sometimes you get a little later. So marketing by working with the entire team.
Mm-hmm. One more question about this, segmentation. It implies that you have the toolkit to actually understand what's happening after you send out the newsletter, the conversion rates tracked from the newsletter. So this requires a little bit of a sophistication in terms of the tools you are using and the whole marketing and maybe sales team are using too. So, how to organize this? What's the first step?
Yeah, I'm not going to say the best first step is HubSpot. It's like saying, oh, your first vacuum cleaner is going to be a Dyson. That's not going to happen. So you've got to get somewhere to earn the right to go to your CFO and say, you know what, I have expensive taste and I want HubSpot. It's a good tool and it's worth the cost, but it's a cost. So there's other things. I mean, traditionally, I used MailChimp and basically I worked with, a developer or somebody like what's it called? A BI person and said, hey, look, we need to hack together a dashboard of how this is working and where the conversions are coming in and so on and so forth. And also have to buy in a little bit maybe with a CFO or a COO or a CEO and say, hey, this is not going to immediately, for the effort you're going to see that we're going to have to put into this, you're not immediately going to see sales spike. But what you're going to see is people stay with us and we can build a brand from that. And that will help sales stay at a higher level and consistent. But it takes patience from everybody involved. But the tool set, there's so many newsletter tools available, and obviously with the right tracking codes, you can track quite a bit, and that doesn't cost a huge amount to get into Google Analytics or whatever other analytics tool you're using. to see, okay, fine, there is this amount of traffic coming from that. Especially if you use UTM codes. They're pre-built in most of the time with a what you call it, newsletter tool.
I love this approach because this is not something that, it's the first idea that comes to your mind. Like spend it on the ads. It actually requires a lot of effort, but then it's also working well, and you own it. It's not like something you have to pay every week in order to get those results. It's something that you do. That's true, but then it's work also that costs money. But then you own the results and the base of your newsletter subscribers.
Yeah, and the thing is, through these things, because I'm advocating for a lot of work before you spend, you get closer to, if you're raising series rounds, you get closer to that or quicker to that point where you can understand when you do start spending money, I put €1 in and I know I'm going to get €4 out or €5 out or whatever it is, the ratio you need. Which is a Series B metric. You need that to be able to get to that round. So, if you can do this legwork, with, non-paid for, leads, though obviously you're paying salaries and all the rest of it, you get to that message market fit, the whole other side of this, because you can get to the product market fit way before you get to the message market fit, potentially, that you can then turn this on and say, okay, Google's always waiting for you there to say, oh, come over here and spend some money. Same with Facebook, same with all the other platforms, but they're just also different parts of the funnel. You're in Google, you're basically saying, here's a buying opportunity. Click on it now. Facebook, it might be a little bit more than the awareness side of it. LinkedIn, it's a heavy thing for your account-based marketing. But these are things that you get to when you get past do I understand how to sell my product, and I'm not just leaving it to chance with Google and a really broad keyword. Because that's what I see a lot, is people go broad with their keywords and don't understand negative keywords. So they all of a sudden are getting unbelievable weird traffic. And if traffic is a metric that you care for, you then get into the situation where maybe an investor or somebody at the C-level is like, oh, we had 20,000 people to the website. Great. Repeat that. And like, well, it's not converting. And they, oh, well, then just make sure, tweak what you have to, make them converting, but keep the traffic high. I can't do both. Because I don't know, maybe 80% of that traffic was garbage. So it's one of those things. And sorry to keep on going, but I think there's money better spent in creating communities by going to stuff like Hacker News or whatever, where people are really wanting your product or wanting to know about a brand new thing, or Discord or whatever else, where these communities already exist and are an easy pot to say, okay, fine, you've got to go in there authentically and say, hey, we're going to add value, not just say, hey guys, come and buy our product. But it all takes a little bit more time.
All right, Nick. So thank you very much for the discussion today. I learned a ton about marketing in terms of the newsletter approach. So this was amazing for me. Is there anything you'd like to add, like as a closing remark or something like this? Something I didn't ask you and you'd like to share?
No. I mean, you've asked all the stuff that I want to ask, and I'm not doing this because I'm on your podcast, but I've worked with you on a project to stabilize a website, and I was really impressed.
Thank you very much.
I want to say on a different notes, and I've publicly done that before on LinkedIn, because I like to work with the right people.
Thank you. I mean, it's amazing you did this, on the record, the tape is still rolling. So thank you very much for this. This means a
No
lot
problem.
to me and for the rest of the team as well. Yeah. So thank you very much for your kind words. All right.
No
So
problem.
thank you for
And I'm
your
not getting
time
paid
today.
for that part.
That's true. Okay. Thank you very much once again, and see you around.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right.
If you like what you've just heard, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. On the other hand, if you've got a question we haven't answered yet, feel free to reach out to us directly. Just go to awesomestudio.com/contact. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.